Welcome to a new episode of Opening Bid. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. Like I always say, this is the podcast that will make you a smarter investor and, dare I say, a better leader. Before we get to our featured guest for this exciting episode, which of course is going to be one of our favorite stocks, that's Nvidia, have to start with our stocks of the day. A little different. Normally I do a stock of the day, going stocks of the day, and that is the quantum computing sector. These stocks are getting absolutely eviscerated in this session today. I'm talking about Rigetti Computing, D-Wave. These have been some of the hottest tickers on Yahoo Finance. I look at Rigetti Computing. Stock's up 1,700% in the past year, ever since that Google Willow chip dropped in early December, has sent this whole space skyrocketing. But why the stocks are getting slammed is because Jensen Huang, the AI godfather, really, I think, set off some concerns about the pace at which quantum computing will drive revenue and profits for a lot of these quantum stocks. Quick note on what Jensen said at CES to the analyst community. Quote, if you kind of said 15 years for very useful quantum computers, that would probably be on the early side. If you said 30, it's probably on the late side. And I think what you've seen with these quantum computing stocks, hard to even say it really fast, is that investors want to see them make money today. Well, newsflash, they're not making money. A lot of these quantum computing stocks are losing massive amounts of money, and I think the street was very surprised by that. That's why you're seeing the sell-off here. But let's stay on all things AI and bring in a friend of the podcast, friend of Opening Bid. That is Wedbush analyst Dan Ives. Dan, you were in that room with Jensen, right, at CES? What was like a rock concert you wrote, right?
Yeah, first row. I mean, that was like a rock concert. Look, I think it speaks to that's the vision. That's where it's all. I mean, just getting back from CES, I mean, it's all about AI, and it's really laying out not necessarily the next 3 to 6 months, but what does the next 5 years, 10 years look like in terms of robotics, autonomous. It doesn't happen without Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia.
Why did the stock sell off?
Look, I mean, we could go back to quarters, right, where the stock sells off. Bears come out, have a hibernation mode, stock goes to 100, then all of a sudden 2 months later back to all-time highs. I mean, my point is look at Apple. Apple sold to 190 at WWDC, when 250, 260. I just think these knee jerks, it's easy to kind of get scared by them because they don't say anything about near-term demand. The reality is you come out of that more bullish rather than less bullish, because of what that market opportunity means in terms of robotics, autonomous, and the future.
Dan, you're in that room. You know, I see Nvidia through the prism of the data we get on Yahoo Finance. Every single day, Dan, the millions of people that go to this Nvidia ticker page is through the roof. This is the most popular stock in the world, at least from my vantage point. When you're in that room at CES, do you feel that excitement?
Yeah.
What are people in that room? What did you hear from them on Nvidia this year?
The only thing that would compare would maybe be like at iPhone launch, Jobs, 2007.
Wow. Really?
I'm trying to give you like an example of like the feel where there's something different, there's something new, and that's why. Look, I get it. Like a lot of the bears that have missed every transformational tech stock the last 20 years, they'll become hyper focused on geopolitical tariffs, 10-year, 5%. Remember, I mean, these are
they're slamming stocks, Dan. I mean, the 10-year and 5% earnings are going to suck.
And remember, these are bears. They hate NASDAQ at 3K, despise it at 20K. It would be like listening to a draft analysis that was super negative on Brady coming out of Michigan 2000 draft 6th round. I'm just trying to explain, that's all noise to me. I just focus on what does the future look like? What does AI revolution as it spreads, not just in names like, of course, Palantir, Salesforce, ServiceNow, the rest of the software. I think that's what it's about. I mean, I think what Jensen's laying out is this is early days. It is just the beginning of the revolution.
But what we're seeing, let me go back to the sell-off here. I think it was, investors, they get worried. They trade in and out of the stock. I think a lot of people that have invested in Nvidia only know the stock to go up generally. Did we get a taste of what it might be like for the first half of this year for Nvidia, where they're not going to be able to do enough to meet the really, really high expectations that they set, Dan? I mean, you know this. They set these expectations last year, given how many times they've squashed earnings and they've just continued to deliver on the tech front.
Actually, I see. I don't think necessarily it's Nvidia because you go look at names like Palantir, Tesla, some of the sell-offs that we're seeing. I think broadly, we're just going to see some white knuckles in the next 6 months. Trump headline risk, tariffs, 10-year maniacal, as it goes to 5%, what does it mean for Fed? And so I think we're going to see some of that. But look, my view is tech stocks are up 25% this year. I think Nvidia is well over 4 trillion along with Apple. I just think we're going into one of those periods where the bears, they're like, okay, well, we've missed out the last 2 years in our caves. Now we're gonna come out. That's central casting. Coming out first week or two, wait for all the downgrades, fire in a crowd theater. But the reality is that you're not stopping 2 trillion of AI capex. See that I just keep coming back to like,
You're not even
look at
looking at you're
my
not even looking at the short term. I mean, I'm getting notes, Dan. I've got notes flooding my box. Oh, Nvidia, they didn't provide any guidance at CES, but they don't normally provide guidance at CES, right?
but Taz, they hated Nvidia 80% ago. They hate it today. As I always say, like the Bears in the 10th floor of the New York City office building, they can't see AI in the spreadsheets. So the point is, like, as I see it globally across Asia, we'll be in Europe next week, which obviously is, really behind when it comes to AI. It, what I'm seeing from IT buyers, not just on the consumer side, but on enterprise, it you're going to see a tidal wave of activity in terms of use cases. And the other thing, remember, like Con, the nightmare, whatever your favorite horror movie is, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, personal favorite.
Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, that '80s Nightmare on
Look,
Elm Street, Dan. That's the jam, dude.
yeah, I don't think I slept for like weeks in Long Island after watching that. But the point is, Con's done. It's gone. That's in the history books. That nightmare is done for tech. You know what that means? M&A. Get the ready, sort of get the engines ready in terms of what we're gonna see M&A around potentially quantum, AI, autonomous chips with Con done.
I got to give a shout out to our tech editor Dan Howley on the ground at CS. Did some really great interviews. Got some time, I believe like 10 minutes with Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang. Really, so we appreciate Nvidia getting that interview to Dan, and Dan, of course, doing that interview. What struck me, Dan, is that I'm always interested in just watching Jensen, how he interacts, how he thinks. Like, what do you think makes him? What makes him tick? I mean, you've seen him up close and personal for many years. I was watching Dan's interview. I mean, he's explaining these complicated things, and you kind of get why Nvidia is Nvidia just by watching him for 10 minutes.
They're so far ahead of the game. It's actually pretty insane. I mean, remember, go back to 2022. You talk about a lot of the analysts that talking about valuation. Jensen, why are you spending on AI? You should be focused on gaming. Why you how'd that play out? So the point is that Jensen, he plays chess, others play checkers at the kids' table. And I think now expanding further and further, if you look what he's talking about in terms of supercomputer, autonomous, in terms of robotics, that physical AI, that's the next step. And look, Blackwell demand's insane. And I just think this is one where it's very easy to come out of this. Stock sells off a bit after all-time high. People take profits, just worry about 10-year, everything else. Let's see where we are 6, 9 months from now. I mean, I just think we're in a once in a 40-year revolution that we just happen to be living through. And that's why sometimes like investors from evaluation, and I get the old school DCF but
Discounted
you
cash
can't,
flow. Discounted cash flow
but
for,
look,
for, for our newer viewers.
you can't put it in terms of the type of growth we're seeing. And there's some investors after I talk to them, I feel like Three's Companies, Silver Spoons, or Knight Riders on TV. I feel like I'm back to 87, or 88. So I think you just have to adjust to a new framework given what we see with this AI revolution.
Are you kidding me, Dan? I watched Knight Rider on reruns over this past weekend. Are you kidding me?
Look,
I
man.
mean, that car drove by itself. But actually,
So
that brings
Kit,
it.
think about it, Kit was the original
Yeah.
autonomous if you actually start to think about it.
Yeah, shout out to David Hasselhoff. I mean, those teams know what
Hassel
they're
and
doing.
and remember Hasselhoff is a singer too. You gotta just shout
Yeah,
that
big
there.
in I think Germany, right? I mean, the guy's a
Oh,
legend.
huge dude, Germany, a legend in Germany.
Guy's a legend. But look, let's stay on autonomous because Jensen dumped a lot of things on the plate of investors to think about. Robotics. Let's just start with autonomous because I know you cover Tesla too. How big is that autonomous opportunity? Now we've talked to some people that would suggest that Tesla's going to start putting out robo-taxis next year, in the middle of next year. You hear Jensen talk about autonomous. Is it really that big? And like, when do we actually start seeing these things?
I think a year from now, we will in certain cities we'll actually see in terms of cyber cabs, you'll start to see them on the road early to mid 26. And that I think that's the reality is that, and also remember the biggest thing regulatory wise now in Musk front seat sort of at the Trump White House, regulatory environment is going to massively change. So that's huge because that's been a huge issue in what I view Tesla's ascent on autonomous as we start to go toward level 4. And it's going to be just the next step on FSD, on cybercaps. We believe it's worth $1 trillion alone. As I've always said, like Tesla's one where to look at it just as a simple car company, EV, deliveries, it's like calling Apple just a traditional hardware smartphone maker when it's 200 billion.
All right, Dan, hang with us. We're going to go off for a quick break. We'll be right back on Opening Bid. All right, having a great conversation on all things NVIDIA and tech with Wedbush analyst Dan Ives. So we're talking about the autonomous opportunity. For those not familiar, Dan, is NVIDIA in a leadership position there? Who else makes these chips going into these autonomous cars?
Well, they're in a lead position when it comes from a chip perspective. When it comes to the actual, of course, like where Waymo is, but I believe Tesla. So you have to think like a triangulated market. Nvidia talked about partnering with Toyota, and they'll obviously be a player there, but it's more they're providing the chips. And I just view it as like when you're bullish on Tesla in terms of autonomous, you're also bullish on Nvidia because they're providing the chips, down the road. And I just think that's the broader view where this is all heading in terms of robotics, autonomous, and the broader technology. They are going to benefit in all facets. Of course, AMD and others at one point will be a competitor. Big tech will build their own chips at one point. But right now, it's NVIDIA's world, everyone else paying rent.
Yeah, Dan, I'm glad you mentioned AMD, not to get too off tangent. I recently wrote a morning brief newsletter on AMD. I'm surprised, Dan. I mean, when I wrote it about maybe 2 weeks ago, the stock was down 7% for the past year. AMD is putting out big numbers. They've solidified number 2 pole position in AI chips. I mean, Intel's not even in this discussion. What gets AMD's stock working again?
You got to start to bring these chips to market. I mean, like, look, you're not going to bet against Lisa Su.
No, I mean, best in class leader.
And I actually think like the sell off in AMD is very similar to like Google and like the 150s were about antitrust. I actually think it's way overdone. They will be a competitor. You're not baking in any AI success in terms of as they're playing out. And I think now this is a prove it year as they start to release some of these products into the market. And I think that's going to be the theme this year, is that a lot of other players are going to benefit on chip, on software, when it comes to AI revolution.
All right, so you're in that room in CS, Dan. You're having fun. You're taking your notes and stuff. So when robots appear on stage with Jensen, what's your first thought?
Well, actually, the first thought is I'm looking at him like, look, is he going to wear a crocodile leather jacket at Davos?
I should.
Wow. That was the first. So the first thing that popped up, I'm like, does he wear that sort of crocodile leather jacket? But again, that's
well. Hold on. So hold on. Let's stay on the jacket. I mean, was the jacket a sign that like we've reached peak Nvidia? I mean, because that's Jensen's not a normal jacket. He wears the black leather jacket, but this had some shine to it, Dan. This was alligator,
brings
right?
out for special occasions,
okay.
and the Hermes sneakers, right? Okay. So you got to include those too. But again, like, when you're worth what Jensen's worth, I think
you could get an alligator leather coat.
You could get a lot of alligator leather coats, but So look, it's I mean, to me, it's just when you're in the room, I think it's also trying to understand like, okay, it's a little snapshot of the future. Where and look, I felt the same way about robotaxi today, right? But just go back to that initial robot street. Remember, a lot of times like vest, no sleeves, spreadsheet with the laptop, come out robotaxi day negative. Look where
Patagonia,
we are.
the Patagonia vests. I mean, let's just be real.
Oh,
I
the
mean, it's the look.
Patagonia, Peter
Yeah,
Millar,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Look where we are today. No, but just think about the reaction in October. Let's go back to WWDC in June. App, I think stock traded maybe like 190. Oh, the AI, this is not. Look at the stock today. And despite like a lot of the long-term bears coming out trying to scare more, the consumer AI revolution runs through Apple. But it goes back to, do you see it this quarter? No. Will you? But it just goes back to like my sort of view, how you have to think about these names and you guys stick to the game plan and you don't get scared by some of these sort of white knuckle where there's 10-year geopolitical China tariffs, knee-jerk reactions.
Let me put this one to you, Dan, because I now see Nvidia and Tesla as very similar companies. I know what they do is different, but there really are AI plays. Do investors run the risk of having too much like concentration in the same theme in their portfolio if they own Tesla and Nvidia?
I think you need to think about it like a basket.
Mm-hmm.
You want to own chip players, of course, led by NVIDIA. You want to own some of the autonomous like Tesla. But also, I think there's hedge. If you look like in software names like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Oracle, I view the hyperscale as Microsoft, Google, Amazon. I think you have to view it as like it's a hedge portfolio in terms of ways to play AI. Look, if you want to play like financials, healthcare, of course, others are going to play. I just continue to view like, do you want to be in the minivan going 40 miles an hour, beating down radio, right lane, or would you pay up for tech in a Ferrari in the left lane? And I think that continues to be the theme as these stocks they continue to execute.
Are you a big robots guy, Dan? You think this is really going
I
to happen?
believe
We
I'm a
all
huge.
you're going to have a
I'm,
humanoid. You're going to have your own humanoid,
I
and you're good
how
with
about
that.
this? I believe next 3 to 4 years, like you are going to see. I'm going to take commonplace, sub 30K. You'll be able to lease them. It's going to become a reality.
Wow. I mean, I maybe I can create my own Dan Ives humanoid robot, and you could just be a recurring guest on the show, like every day, like
But
every time.
but look, it's like I true. I mean, me and you have talked for years. Like the Jetsons is becoming a reality. And I think that's the one thing. Like when you leave CES, CES is not about like flying drones, refrigerators that talk to you. We're talking real applicability that's just starting on the consumer enterprise. I can tell you 30, 40% of the people that I see at CES this year, it's their first time. So there's a lot of companies that are not officially at CES that are there because they're looking around technology, trying to understand where they're going to be. And I think that's the important thing.
Well, I know just staying on real quick before I let you go. Did you see that Xpeng news? I mean, it was like a van, and then you open the. I never thought I'd own a van in my life. I mean, I hate vans. I hate vans. I get it. They make sense though. But you open the back of this Xpeng, and like a flying, I guess, plane or
No,
something comes out where you can like fly in a helicopter. I mean, holy cow! Like,
yeah,
is
I
that?
was there. I was there, and it's what. Look, remember, we're talking 2028. Like, it just speaks to my view. This is unprecedented. So again, you could sit there and focus on what these stocks look like over the next year. We're in a transformation. This is not hype. This is as real as anything I've seen. I think it's going to change the world. And that's why I just go back to like the bears that focus on valuation, a macro event, and black swan event. Usually, they scare people on the weekends as the bulls are enjoying themselves. They'll do the same thing this time. And I'm not saying we're not going to have ebbs and flows. Tech stocks will be much higher this year, and especially when I look at names like Nvidia, Tesla, Apple, and others.
Dan, you're the perfect guy for our hot take segment. You always are. So I left two stocks specifically for you in about, let's say, 3.5 minutes we have. Apple. one of your peers on the street downgraded the stock this week to sell. I think it surprised a lot of folks, but the note to me made sense. It seemed valuation based. Seems like the bad news has been piling up on Apple the past few months. Maybe the street has ignored that, or investors have ignored that. What do you think of a call like that? Are there valuation concerns on Apple?
If you focus purely on valuation, then of course that's gonna be a sort of cookie cutter call. But you can't just focus on value. You have to focus on best consumer install base in the world, 300 million have an upgrade phone 4+ years. iPhone so far has basically been at plan to maybe even slightly above in certain areas. Okay, sort of pulls and takes. And the AI revolution on the enterprise goes to Nvidia. The consumer AI revolution goes to Apple. 25% will access AI through an Apple device. So it just goes to my point, like, to focus just on valuation, that's how you've missed Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, Palantir. Yahoo is a teenager earlier this year, despises senior citizen living in Boca at 75. The point is, like, that continues to sort of be the theme. That's why I always say the bears, when they're in their caves, they can see AI in the spreadsheet.
Last one, Dan. And I guess just speaking to the bears, probably wearing their Patagonia vests. Salesforce recently caught a downgrade that caught my attention. And what caught my attention here is, of course, Mark Benioff always coming on Yahoo Finance. I know you know the Salesforce team too as well, Dan. But this analyst made the case that they may not monetize AI agents damn near, if at all, this year. What say you?
Look, doubting Benioff, it's like doubting Mahomes or in the playoffs.
Or me.
Or you look, it goes back to, like, look at that install base. Look at agent force. All of our checks are showing it is just early days in terms of how they're going to monetize. I think it's one of the best software plays out there. It's one of our top picks for this year. It goes back to, again, a lot of analysts, if they can see it in the spreadsheet, they're negative. Betting against Salesforce in the AI revolution, it's just, to me, it is the wrong bet. Because I think it's one of the best plays as this software age takes off in 2025. I'm not going to say we're not going to have some white knuckle moments. But the reality is that this is year 3 of what's really going to be a 5-6 year tech bull market.
Yeah, quick plug. I'm getting ready to head to the World Economic Forum in Davos. We'll probably talk to Mark Benioff, but he uses that forum at Davos really to just, the deals that he signs, how busy he is there. Keep an eye on Salesforce in the weeks to come. Dan Ives, you were the man. Thanks for always making time for the opening bid community. We appreciate you. Good luck in your travels, and always good to talk to you.
Great. Thanks for being here. We are Penn State.
Nice. Dan Ives over at Wedbush. Thanks so much. And that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid. Be sure to hit us with those 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Music, the thumbs up on YouTube. Drop comments all over the place. I love answering them. I love reading them because that's ultimately what helps make people become better investors. We'll talk to you soon. On the hunt for the hottest market commentary? Then join me, Yahoo Finance's executive editor Brian Sozzi, on Opening Bid, the show with unrivaled insights from top money managers and analysts. New episodes of Opening Bid every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday starting at 8 a.m.